Coming in at number 7, I have Daimy Brown out of UNC, wide receiver, obviously. He went to the Washington football team in the 3rd round, and he was the 82nd overall pick. When I was first making this list, I actually had him as my wide receiver 3 out of all these wide receivers, but after taking a look at the depth chart and really like looking into the Redskins offense, I didn't love what I was seeing. Woo! Excuse me. So right off the bat, their offensive line rank last season was 29th according to PFF, and this was something where the overall stat didn't really show their pass blocking, how their pass blocking was last year. So they had a 59% team pass block win rate last season, which was 14th according to ESPN. So obviously their pass blocking was a lot better than their run blocking. So I think that could help Daimy Brown a little bit. Their key offensive pieces this year are Ryan Fitzpatrick and Antonio Gibson. Obviously, Fitzpatrick, should have said this prior, but Fitzpatrick just came from Miami. Antonio Gibson, they also have the running back, J.D. McKissick. The wide receiver 1 is Terry McLaurin. According to me, their wide receiver 2 is former Panther Curtis Samuel. And their starting tight end is Logan Thomas. So they made a few decent offseason acquisitions here. They signed Charles Leno from the Bears to play left tackle. They traded for Eric Flowers, who was formerly on the Giants, then the football team, Miami, and then back to the football team now. They have another very solid offensive lineman, Brandon Sheriff, not signed, but he's been there. They also drafted Samuel Cosme in the 2nd round of the 2021 draft. So I do believe they have a few pieces here that can help with Brown's production. My only problem is going to be playing time for him. He is going to be the wide receiver 3/4. Currently, Arrowlads has him listed as the 2nd slot receiver behind Curtis Samuel. They have Kelvin Harmon as the right wide receiver. But I do think Harmon and Brown are different players. Also, it kind of stinks that Washington signed Adam Humphries, who is also a decent slot receiver. So it'll be interesting to see how much time Dyami Brown can play. But I think if he can get playing time, I think he can be a very solid player. Also, I'm not really sure what I'm getting from this offense. I know Ryan Fitzpatrick is a solid quarterback. So I think this could be his year. Especially, he loves to show out for his first year on new teams when there's no expectations for him, or maybe people think he's not going to be all that good. So this is usually the time when he shows out. So this could be really good for Brown. But at the same time, their defense is really good, which could keep them in games. So they might not have to win shootouts. So they might run the ball more with Gibson, or kind of play more conservatively. Which isn't really Fitzpatrick's game, but we'll see what Coach Rivera wants to do. But yeah, so just take it as you will. I did have him as the wide receiver 3 prior to looking a little bit more into it. So I do like him as a player. I do like him for this offense. It's just a question of how many snaps he can get, and then combined with how many targets he can get with those snaps. Now, coming in as my last definitive receiver prospect, I have Nico Collins out of Michigan. He went to the Houston Texans, and now this one's probably a little weird. I don't think many people are talking about Nico Collins. I think the main storyline with the Texans is Deshaun Watson and his allegations and whether he's going to play football at all. I don't really know much about Collins as a player, but I do know that Texans are kind of a dumpster fire right now. So I'll talk more about the team and then say why I picked him, put him on this list. So last season they had the 19th ranked offensive line according to PFF, with a 56% team pass block win rate, which was 19th according to ESPN. Obviously, if Deshaun Watson plays and he sticks with the Texans, I think that's going to boost everyone around them. I think that offense could actually still be pretty viable, in my opinion. But for now, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter, at least in my projection. Despite the allegations, whether they're true or not, Watson did come out prior to all that and say he does not want to play for the Texans again, and he will sit out and not get paid, essentially. So I do think that Deshaun's days in Houston are done. So I do think Tyrod Taylor could be the starting quarterback. As I mentioned in a previous video, I think Davis Mills could come in, or they should give him a shot because he was their first overall quarterback selection in this draft in the 3rd round. I'd say quarterback selection, like selection in general, because their first pick was at the top of the 3rd round. But I do think Tyrod Taylor is going to start as the quarterback for this team. going into the season. They have a few running backs on roster, but their starter, according to our lads, is David Johnson. They also signed Mark Ingram and Philip Lindsay. According to me, their wide receiver 1 is Brandon Cooks. Their wide receiver 2 is Randall Cobb. And they have Nico Collins as the backup to Brandon Cooks at left wide receiver. But their right wide receiver for this depth chart is Andre Roberts, but he's more of a special teamer in my opinion. I don't think he'll have any real offensive snaps, nothing that could take away from Nico Collins. So I do think he can slot in there and be the starting wide receiver. Of course, my main concern is quarterback. Tyrod Taylor, I don't think he can really produce any fantasy relevant wide receivers, players in general. I guess he could. But I think it'd be more of a Brandon Cooks. I don't think I mentioned it before, but Jordan Atkins potentially, or Brevin Jordan, rookie tight end, who I really love out of Miami, from the 5th round of the 2021 draft. Also, the offense is probably going to be pretty inconsistent. Not any really game-changing players here. Brandon Cooks is a very solid wide receiver. He bounces around from team to team and still does pretty well with each team that he plays in, but I think in general this offense is pretty lackluster. Their offensive line I do think is a little bit better, so I think it could keep them in a little bit of games, but their defense as a whole is pretty bad, especially when you look at their D-line, arguably the most important part of the defense. It's pretty bad, so I do think they're going to be trailing a lot, which could actually help Nico Collins. It could be passing more than running. But my main thing with Nico Collins, and the reason why I actually added him on this list right at the end, is I do think that Houston will start off the season very terribly. I'm not sure exactly when their bye week is, but I could easily see them starting the season like 0-8 or maybe like 1-7, something like that, and then they go into their bye week and they blow it up, and they either cut or trade any expensive veterans that could hurt their cap space going forward. And I do think they could start maybe some of the young guys. I don't think head coach David Culley is a long-term guy as head coach. I think he's more of a stopgap type of hiring. So I don't see his job security being an issue for this organization. I think that he's just a guy for now until they can have a better coaching market. So I could definitely see them playing maybe Davis Mills later in the season with Nico Collins, and maybe get Collins, I don't know, anywhere from like 7 to 15 targets per game. So if you're willing to wait on this guy, who probably won't have any immediate fantasy production, keep him on your bench, or maybe keep an eye on him on the waiver wire for the whole season. I think he could be a very solid payoff player at the end of the year.
Never ever find the right words, and there's no way this is real life. There's no telling you're the right girl, so I can only say that it feels right.